What's going on, my super fam, and today we're back with another Honkai style video because patch 1.2 is basically right around the corner and we just have our live stream packed with a lot of content for the patch, unlike in 1.1 where basically a filler patch. Now, this patch is going to be interesting in terms of the character that we want to pull because it's going to be featuring the most current wanted waifu of the game, Kafka, and one of the hottest husbando currently to boot, Blade. Now I guess most of the male character in Honkai Star Rail is really well designed, even though I'm someone who prefer waifu characters. And so since these are two of the characters that is mostly wanted, I feel that it's going to be a rather tough decision for free to play character as well as many of the players as well, even for me, to decide which character to pull, because going for both is usually tough for those of us who don't usually swipe your credit card. So without further ado, let's dive into the video. First off, we have Kafka. Oh my god, she is a beauty as always, and this time around she's going to be a Nihility Lightning character. Basic attack is like any of the usual character. Now skill part is where it starts to get interesting. When Kafka uses her skill, she'll deal lightning damage equal to 140% of her attack plus to the targeted enemy, plus lightning damage equal to 52.5% of Kafka attack to enemies adjacent to her. Now if the current enemy is receiving damage over time or DOTs, all the DOT currently placed on the enemies will immediately produce damage equal to 71.25% of their original damage. Now I'm having the level cap at level 8 for now, but basically as we can see, in order for Kafka to maximize her skill potential, the enemies have to currently have DOT, which is why having party members that applies DOT onto your enemies other than Kafka herself is going to be crucial for her. Ultimate deals lightning damage equal to 72% of Kafka attacks to all enemy with a 100 base chance to apply shocked and immediately take damage equal to 95% of the DOT, and it lasts for 2 turns. Now while shocked enemies, it also receive lightning DOT equal to 224.75% of Kafka's attack at the beginning of each turn. Now one of the biggest thing with Kafka, I feel, is that obviously she was a character that was released since closed beta, and I believe that many of us have been able to test her out. However, from what I've heard, she has been nerfed quite a lot and the closed beta version was a lot better. And even though I don't really know anything about the closed beta, just looking at her numbers here regarding her burst, just a 72% of Kafka's attack to all enemies is kind of like numbers that is lower than her normal attack damage itself. Of course there are extra damage coming from shock and DOT damage, however it is still pretty low for an ultimate of a 5-star character. For a talent, after your teammate do a basic attack, Kafka will immediately launch a follow-up attack, deals lightning damage equal to 115.5% with a 100% base chance to inflict shocked, equivalent to that applied by her ultimate for 2 turns. However, this can only be triggered once per turn. For Kafka's technique, immediately attack all enemy within the set range and will deal lightning damage equal to 50% of Kafka's attack to all enemies with a guaranteed chance to inflict shocked, equivalent to that of applied by her burst for 2 turns. For Kafka's A2, when ultimate is used, enemy target will now immediately receive damage from all current applied DOT source instead of immediately receiving damage from the current applied shock state. For her A4, if an enemy is defeated while shocked, Kafka additional regenerate 5 energy. And for her basics, the base chance of her ultimate, technique, or the follow-up attack to trigger by the talent to inflict shock increases by 30%. And so those are basically her skills and kits at this point in time, guys. Now I want to have a look into her pros and cons based on all of the information that we've got at this point. For pros, guys, Kafka will currently be the best DOT character because of course that is basically surrounding everything about her kit. The ability to 100% apply shocked to enemy is absolutely really good and pull out the best of her ability regarding a Nihility character. If you are playing similar to Universe, guys, she will also be the best character to play along with Nihility Path because technically speaking she'll be able to massively utilize its ability. She does follow-up attack for your teammates whenever you do basic attack, and it also applies shock, which is really good, so there's more potential for you to do damage as well as apply DOT. Now if you didn't know, guys, then the developer did kind of nerf enemy effect resistance, so you don't really need too much effect hit rate to land your shocks now. She's basically a character that's much better than Saval. So if you are someone who have already built Saval and don't want to replace her, you can still use both of them together on the team. Everyone has March 7th or Fire MC, so Kafka Relic Domain is actually quite efficient because it gives you defense set plus lightning set. Now in terms of Kafka's downside, which we actually quite have a lot to discuss at this point, because the biggest thing right now is that her personal damage isn't really good, like regarding her skills and ult damage, because the multipliers are pretty low. The only thing that's good on her right now is her shock do a lot of damage, and also in order to make the most out of Kafka's ability, you will want to play her in a DOT team, or in other words, you need to play other DOT's character, you know, like Sample, Saval, Hook, for them to also apply DOT damage so that Kafka can make use of her ability. So if you're someone who've played Genshin Impact, you can understand her a little bit like Nilou. When Nilou wants to play in her specific Bloom team, Kafka here as well wants to play in her specific DOT team. Now of course Kafka here is a lot more flexible than Nilou, because technically speaking she can still perform in any of the team you want her to be. But guys, since her multipliers are really low and you want to make use of a skill effect as much as possible in terms of triggering all DOT at the same time, you will still want to play her in a DOT team. Now regarding Kafka's build, she's actually a pretty hard character to build since she actually needs all the stats like break effect, effect hit rate, attack as well as crit, because break effect actually buff your shock damage, effect hit rate make sure that you land all of your DOT shocks, and of course crit and attack for damage. Now she is also a character that doesn't ascend with crit but effect hit rate, therefore you would want to try a lot harder so that you have very good artifacts or relics built onto her. Next we move on to Blade. For skills, Blade will consume HP equal to 30% of his max HP to enter what's called Hellscape state, where it increases his damage dealt by 33% at level 8, and his basic attack is now converted into Forest of Sword for 3 turns. So basically his skill is going to be consuming his HP in order to buff his attack by a lot, while it also gives him access to basically AoE damage, which is really nice. For his burst, it set his current HP to a 50% of his max HP and deal damage to a single enemy, while also dealing wind damage to adjacent targets, with calculations similar to the above, just with smaller numbers. For his talents, whenever Blade sustains damage or consume his own HP, he gains 1 stack of charge with a maximum of 5 stack. When it reaches the maximum, he immediately launches a follow-up attack to all enemies, at the same time restoring 25% of his max HP as well. For Blade's technique, immediately attack the enemy after entering the combat, consume 20% of Blade's max HP while dealing wind damage equal to 40% of his max HP to all enemies. For Blade A2, when his current HP is at 50% of his max HP or lower, incoming healing increases by 20%. For A4, if Blade hits a weakness broken enemy after using Forest of Sword, he will restore HP equal to 5% of his max HP plus 100. And for his A6, damage dealt by talent's follow-up attack increases by 20%. And so those are Blade's skills and kit. Now let's have a look into his pros and cons. First upside, he's a really good character with both AoE and single target, because as you have seen, his scaling is actually pretty high. Alongside with all of his traces does allow his attack to increase further as well. He will act as a tanky DPS who doesn't really rely on other too much, because he does have the ability to self-heal with his follow-up attack, and that's a really nice thing to have on his kit, because if Hoyoverse didn't add an ability for him to self-heal, he will actually be in trouble. He does the same with crit rate, which is really nice, therefore it's quite easy for him to be built. And also looking at all of his information at this point in time, he will likely to be the best win DPS, at least until we know what the next win character are gonna be. First downside guys, now here's the thing that you guys might not have noticed, is that Blade power is quite similar to Clara's, you know, our cute little Clara. So if you've already have a decently well built Clara guys, you actually don't really need him in terms of meta level. Whenever you use your ult, it will set his HP to basically a 50% of his max HP. So you still need to be careful not to get him killed while using Blade. Now this factor actually kind of works well if you have low charge auto heal, or in other words, Blade works really well on low charge team, which is kind of like you need another 5-star character. And so guys, those are basically the pros and cons of Kafka and Blade. I hope that it have been quite informative for you in order to shape the picture of how these two characters will be performing. Now it comes to the biggest question question of the video, and the reason why you're here is which character you should pull for. And of course, I will be giving you my personal recommendation, and you can choose to go along with it or not. It's going to be your choice. But it's something that I will be doing myself if I were to be the one to choose between one or two characters. Now, first off is, of course, if you can go for both of these characters, then yeah, I guess there's not much of a consideration on your part. But if you can just go either one of the two, then of course, first choice is always going to be your preference, guys. Whichever character that you have kind of like more of an interest in, you love how the character play, how the character looks, that's definitely the character you want to go for, because again, it's just a game and you should just go for the character that you feel like you want best. However, in terms of the meta, guys, at this point in time, Blade is clearly going to be a lot better than Kafka. Kafka is just, first of all, really hard to build. Her personal damage is quite low. You need to invest a lot into her relics in order for her to have decent stats. Not to mention, she is required for you to use her in a DO team specialized team. Therefore, other characters of yours should be DOT character, and you will also have to build those characters as well. So overall, in Kafka's place, it's kind of like a 100% investment into everything that she needs in order for her to perform decently well. While in terms of Blade, if he's tanky enough, I feel that he's a character that can actually solo content. Can be hard at times, but I guess you know what I mean. He is pretty good at this point in time. He does damage, have access to auto heal, and also not to mention AoE attack as well, which is really beneficial. However, guys, here's another consideration, is that if you're someone who's considering the meta and kind of want to go for a really good DPS character, then they have been saying, this is not official information in any way, guys, but they have been saying is that Dan Heng 5-star version, which is a character that's going to be released in patch 1.3, is going to be performing decently better than Blade. I'm not confirming anything, guys, this is just speculation and not official information, but this is kind of like me putting out there in terms of future banner consideration for you guys, because we've known that Dan Heng 5-star and Fuswan is going to be the character after 1.2. So if you're someone who loves those two characters as well, you might want to hold back on your pools and wait for more information regarding those two characters before actually making your decision of pooling. Those would be my saying on the two characters at this point in time, guys. I hope that it have been informative for you. If you do have any question, leave it down in the comment section, and I or some other lovely Honkai Star Rail player will get to you there. If you're new to the channel, guys, don't forget to subscribe, as I post a lot of Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail content, and I'm sure it's going to be a valuable and enjoyable videos for you to watch. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me to this part of the video, guys, and with that, I wish you a super day, and I will catch you on my next video.